Your fingernails, as you read this, are skimming a surface engineered for minimum friction. The glass in your hand, the screen beneath your thumb, the chair that holds your skeleton at a perfect 90-degree angle. Every surface in your line of sight has been polished, softened, and refined to ask nothing of you. Now, picture an 18-year-old boy on a stone floor at dawn in Laconia. No blanket beneath him, no cushion. The air temperature is just above freezing. His skin is oiled, not for comfort, but because olive oil mixed with dust creates a seal against the wind. He has not eaten in 22 hours. He will not eat for 6 more. And he will spend those hours running barefoot across terrain that would tear the soles off a modern hiking boot. He will not get sick. He will not develop a respiratory infection. He will not complain. Not because he is superhuman, because the system that built him engineered illness out of the equation. Here's the detail that changes everything. 2 civilizations looked at the same human body. One decided to shield it. The other decided to forge it. The 2 choices produced 2 completely different kinds of men. You just glimpsed the distance between where you stand and where a different system could place you. If that gap stirs something in you, if you want to keep uncovering the patterns that built men who could not be broken, then subscribe. This channel exists for men who sense the difference and refuse to look away. And in the comments, write the one surface in your life you know should be harder, but you haven't changed yet. You know the morning ritual, not the Spartan one. Yours, the pill organizer with its 7 compartments and its little labeled doors. The glass of water that feels mandatory. The slight taste of something metallic at the back of the throat. Vitamin D because you don't see the sun enough. Magnesium because your muscles are tight. Omega-3s because your joints make sounds they shouldn't. Maybe a probiotic because your digestion feels wrong. Maybe melatonin because your sleep cycle has collapsed. And somewhere in the background, the quiet admission that you are managing symptoms, not causes. Now consider this. The Spartan warrior had none of these. No supplements, no painkillers, no cold medicine, no antacids, no allergy tablets. The Hellenistic world had no germ theory, no sterile fields, no hand sanitizer, no quarantine protocols. Their cities were crowded, their water sources shared with animals, their wounds dressed with honey and vinegar at best. By every metric of modern public health, they should have died in waves from dysentery, sepsis, and respiratory collapse. They did not. The archaeological record at the Artemis Orthia sanctuary turned up bones with healed fractures, healed infections, signs of repeated trauma that the body absorbed and overcame. The same sanctuary produced mass graves from the classical period. But those were battle casualties, not plague victims. The Helot population, living in worse conditions, did get sick. The difference was not genetics. The difference was the system. You are now deep enough into this to know the system is real, not romantic. The archaeological evidence does not lie, and neither does your morning pill organizer. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when we trace this same pattern into the nervous system, the sleep architecture, and the stress cycles that break modern men silently. And in the comments, answer this. How many compartments does your pill organizer have? And when did you first notice it growing? Let me take you inside that system, not from a textbook, from the ground, from the skin. The Agojé did not begin with weapons. It began with exposure. Boys at age 7 were taken from their families and placed into barracks called Syssitia. They slept on reeds they cut themselves from the Eurotas River. They were given 1 garment per year, a coarse wool cloak called a phoenicus that served as coat, blanket, and ground sheet. They walked barefoot on stone, on frost, on gravel, on mud mixed with animal waste. The first lesson of Spartan medicine was not inoculation. It was hardening. The word karteria meant endurance, not of pain, but of environment. Cold, hunger, exhaustion, exposure. These were not enemies to be avoided. They were stressors to be metabolized. Plutarch wrote that Spartan boys were taught to steal food from the mess halls, not because the state was cruel, but because the act of foraging under threat created a metabolism that could handle irregular intake. Their bodies learned to switch fuel sources. Their immune systems learned to activate without inflammation. Their white blood cell counts, if we could measure them, would have looked nothing like yours. They had constant low-grade bacterial exposure from the water, the soil, the shared sleeping space, the open wounds. Their immune systems were not dormant. They were in a permanent state of calibrated alert. Now, here's what almost never appears in the popular version. The Spartan diet was not a feast of meat and blood and glory. It was just enough to keep a man functional. Barley, wine, olive oil, figs, cheese, and the infamous melas zomos, black broth made from pork, blood, salt, and vinegar. Modern nutritionists have estimated the caloric intake of a Spartan soldier on active duty at roughly 1,600 calories per day. A modern male adult at the same activity level would be eating 3,000. The difference is not just weight. 1,600 calories is an intermittent fast every single day. It is a state of mild ketosis, of reduced oxidative stress, of autophagy, the cellular cleaning process that modern longevity researchers pay thousands of dollars to induce. The Spartans did not fast for longevity. They fasted because there was no other option. But the biological result was the same. Their cells recycled damaged components. Their inflammatory markers stayed low. Their insulin sensitivity remained the equivalent of a modern athlete on a strict metabolic protocol. Two civilizations looked at the same human body. One saw a machine that needed input. The other saw a fire that needed fuel, but not too much. Pause here. Notice what you feel. There is a version of this story that makes you angry at modern medicine, at convenience, at the system that sold you the pill organizer. That anger is valid, but it is also a trap. The Spartans did not avoid sickness because they hated the outside world. They avoided sickness because their environment forced them into daily behaviors that optimized immune function, metabolic flexibility, and psychological resilience. The same boy who slept on reeds at 7 was the same man who stood in the phalanx at 30 without flinching at a spear wound. His body did not separate days into healthy and sick. It operated on a continuum of adaptation. You operate on a binary. You wake up either fine or not fine. And when you wake up not fine, you reach for something in the cabinet. He did not have a cabinet. The second layer of the system was regulation of the nervous system. This is where the physiological meets the psychological, and where modern men feel the deepest void. A Spartan warrior before battle was not isolated in a quiet room with soft lighting and breathing instructions. He was in formation, shoulder to shoulder, smelling the sweat and the oil and the bronze of the man next to him. His body temperature rose. His cortisol spiked. His heart rate climbed. But the training of the Agoge had taught him something that modern stress protocols miss. He did not suppress the stress response. He completed it. The body of a man under threat has a natural arc: activation, action, resolution. The Spartan completed that arc by stepping forward, by throwing his weight behind the shield, by feeling the shock of contact travel up his arm and into his spine. The cortisol was metabolized. The adrenaline was used. The nervous system returned to baseline, not because he calmed down, but because he finished what the stress was asking him to do. You do not complete the arc. You feel the stress of the morning email. You sit in traffic. The cortisol stays in your bloodstream. Your immune system flags that cortisol as a prolonged threat. It downregulates. You get sick more often. Not because you are weak, because your environment prevents you from completing the stress cycle. Consider the single most concrete marker of immunity: respiratory infection rates. A 2018 study from the University of California tracked men aged 25 to 45 across a winter season. Those who reported high stress levels and low physical activity had 3 times the number of respiratory infections as those who combined moderate stress with consistent movement. The mechanism was not mysterious. Movement flushes the lymphatic system. It circulates immune cells through the bloodstream. It clears mucus from the lungs. The Spartan warrior did not need to know the mechanism. He was moving 16 hours a day. His lymph was always flowing. His lungs were always clear. The modern man sits for 10 hours, stares at a screen for 2 more, and wonders why a cold hits him harder than it used to. Now, here is where the evidence becomes uncomfortable. The Spartan system did not just produce men who resisted infection, it produced men who healed faster. Xenophon recorded an incident in which a Spartan soldier took a spear through the thigh during a training accident. The wound was bound with linen and vinegar. He was back in formation within 8 days. A modern male with the same wound would be on antibiotics for 2 weeks, on crutches for 6, and in physical therapy for 3 months. The difference is not genetics. The difference is the adaptive capacity of a body that has been trained to recover, not to rest. The Spartan body did not know the concept of rest as avoidance of activity. It knew the concept of sleep as biological repair. He slept on that reed mat in a room with 30 other men, body heat stabilizing the ambient temperature. No artificial light disrupting his melatonin production. No phone buzzing at midnight. His cortisol followed the natural curve of the sun. Yours does not. You are standing at the edge of a decision. The evidence is laid out. The system exists, it works, and your environment is the only thing between you and a body that does not need the cabinet. Subscribe now before you close this tab and drift back into the noise. Because what comes next in this series is not theory. It is the practical architecture of rebuilding, week by week, the exact conditions that produce that kind of resilience. And in the comments, leave one word that captures the thing you know you must change first. This is the detail that changes everything about how you see your own health. The Spartan did not have a better genome. He did not have access to herbs or rituals that modern medicine has lost. Rather, he had a system of environmental engineering that forced his body into metabolic flexibility, constant immune calibration, and completed stress cycles. The absence of that system is the reason you need the pills. Not because something is wrong with you, because something is wrong with the environment you accept.